With the 2024 NFL trade deadline looming on the horizon, today on the Commanders Report, we're going to be breaking down the latest Commanders trade rumors and the latest players that are being linked to the Commanders before the NFL trade deadline this year. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Now, before we get into the trade rumors today, predict it for me down there in the comments section. Will the Commanders make a trade before the deadline this year? Type T if you think they make a trade, or type N if you say, nah, they're going to stay put. They're not going to get anybody. They're good. Okay, so the first trade rumor of the day, biggest name that we're going to be talking about today is T. Higgins. Now, ESPN's Benjamin Solak has linked T to the Washington Commanders in recent days, saying that the Commanders wouldn't mind adding a receiver like T. Higgins to their offense. Now, this is very interesting to me personally, because I just don't think that the Commanders really need to spend a big-time draft capital on another big-name receiver. I think that right now, what the Commanders have in the wide receiver room is actually pretty good. And I think that moving forward here, the Washington Commanders, they've got guys like Terry McLaurin. They've got Noah Brown in that number 2 spot. I like what Luke McCaffrey, De'Ami Brown, and Olamide Zaccheaus have brought in supplementary roles. I like where this wide receiver room right now is at, and not to mention Austin Eckler is an excellent outlet out of the backfield, and Zach Ertz has been very good as a receiving tight end as well. So listen, man, it would be different if you didn't have a true number 1 in Terry McLaurin, but you do have Scary Terry here. So I don't think you have to go out and make a big move for a guy like T. Higgins. And honestly, I think Noah Brown has proven that he is just fine as a number 2 receiver. So if you ask me, do I want to go out and spend big-time draft capital, probably a second-round pick, to go out and get T. Higgins? The answer to that question is probably no. And yes, I do think that that is going to be the price for the Washington Commanders to acquire T. Higgins, is a second-round pick. It's sent to the Cincinnati Bengals. And honestly, man, I'd rather keep that pick to bolster up the offensive line next spring, to bolster up the secondary, to bolster up the defensive line. Whatever the team's needs are come next offseason, I'd rather have that second-round pick in my back pocket instead of trading for a big-name receiver, which honestly, the Commanders don't really need right now, at least in my opinion. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Would you make this trade? If you were Commanders GM Adam Peters and the Bengals offered this deal to you, would you type A for accept, or are you going to type D for decline? This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show, so YouTube's going to throw an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. And when that happens, take that second down there to give me an A or a D down there in the comments. So now let's shift to edge rusher here, where the New York Jets have given Haason Reddick permission to seek a trade. Now, obviously, the Jets just traded for Devontae Adams. They've been very active on the trade market this year. And Reddick is somebody that they traded for during the offseason. They didn't lock him up to a long-term deal when they made the deal with Philadelphia, and it really bit them in the ass, man. They didn't get that long-term deal done at any point during the offseason. Hasn't played a single down, hasn't even taken a single practice with the New York Jets this season. Now, he has been a Pro Bowler the last 2 seasons with the Philadelphia Eagles. That's why Reddick wants to get paid the insane amount of money he wants to get paid, and he just hasn't gotten that yet. So he hasn't reached that long-term deal and has demanded a trade from the Jets, and now the Jets are finally giving him permission to speak with other teams to try to find himself a landing spot somewhere in the NFL that's willing to take on his antics and take on his volatility here. You do look at the stats here. The last 4 seasons, hasn't played this year, so obviously the stats there don't really or aren't really irrelevant. But double-digit sacks the last 3 years. He was an All-Pro back in 2022, Pro Bowler back in 2023. This guy has excellent measurables, man. Great first step. Very explosive athlete, and over the last several years in Philadelphia, man, he has really, really developed into one of the most explosive and dynamic pass rushers that the game has to offer. And personally, man, I think he'd be a great fit for what Washington wants to do here. Obviously, with Jonathan Allen out for the season, the Commanders could certainly use help in terms of a pass rush, and I do think he could fit into that Micah Parsons type role in Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr.'s system here in Washington. And honestly, I'd be open to making a trade for Haason Reddick, but he definitely comes with risks. So because of that, I would want a big-time discount in terms of what I'm sending to the New York Jets. And, you know, I'd be very, very worried about giving him a brand new long-term contract as well. And those are my 2 concerns here, man. Number one is he even in playing shape right now? He hasn't practiced. He hasn't played. Like, if you trade for him, is he really ready to go? I mean, it seems like he's been on vacation. It seems like he hasn't really been keeping himself ready. Like, I think a big risk in trading him for Haason Reddick is that he just might not be very productive this year because he's not in playing shape. Then the other thing is, if you trade for him, you likely have to give him a brand new contract. That's what his new agent, Drew Rosenhaus, really wants to get done here. And honestly, man, with his off-field antics, with two trade demands over the span of just one season, like, I'm just not sure if the Commanders want to take on this kind of risk. So I certainly understand the hold up here with some fans for not wanting to go get a guy like Haason Reddick. And honestly, man, if I'm going to make a trade for a guy like this, I'm not going to be giving up pretty much anything of value in terms of draft capital. Maybe a 7th round pick, right? I would need to really fleece the New York Jets out of this guy to even consider bringing him in. And I definitely think it's going to be an interesting discussion here to see where he ends up going. I think other teams that could be interested in Reddick, the Indianapolis Colts, the Arizona Cardinals, are two teams with coaches back in Philly that Haason Reddick is familiar with. Maybe those teams make sense. There's certainly some other teams out there that could use some edge rusher help as well. The Detroit Lions just lost Aiden Hutchinson for the year. I think they could be in the mix as well. But the Commanders, after losing Jonathan Allen, if they can fleece the Jets and just send a 7th round pick for somebody that's been a 2-time Pro Bowler last 2 years, maybe that's worth taking a risk on. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Is this worth the risk? Send a 7th rounder for Haason Reddick. Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. Coming up here, I'm going to be telling you guys about our sponsor here at Game Time. And while I'm talking about Game Time, go down there in the comment section and give me a yes or a no to whether you would trade for Haason Reddick. Now let's get into our sponsor read today from our friends at Game Time, which is the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets for the sports, music, comedy, and theater in your area. And guys, we all know that experiencing a sporting event, especially a football game live, is unlike anything you can get from watching the game on your couch. So if you want to go see more Commanders games this year, our friends at Game Time have a brand new feature on their free app called Game Time Picks, which filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And you take a look at all you have to do to get great tickets from our friends at Game Time using Game Time Picks. You go into the Game Time app, you select an event that you guys want to go see, and you select that Game Time Picks button at the top of the screen. It automatically filters through their entire database of tickets for that particular event to find you the best seats at the best prices so you don't have to spend hours of research on a bunch of different ticketing apps trying to find the best price and tickets for you and your family. And what I love about using the Game Time app, guys, is you get the lowest price guarantee on any ticket to any event, all-in pricing so you don't get slapped with crazy fees at checkout, and flash deals. So if you're someone like me and you like to procrastinate and wait till the last minute to get your tickets, you can get even cheaper tickets if you wait longer with the flash deals that Game Time has at their disposal. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time today. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS. It's one word, all caps, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Now, before I go here, I want to talk about two cornerback trade targets that have been linked to Washington in recent days, because this is really what I think is the biggest trade need for the Washington Commanders, man. You look at the depth chart for the Washington Commanders right now at the cornerback position, it is just not very good whatsoever. Even Emmanuel Forbes, this team's first-round pick just 2 seasons ago, was a healthy scratch last week against Baltimore. So they definitely need to make a move at corner, in my opinion. And the two guys that have been linked to the Commanders in recent days are Jonathan Jones from the Patriots and Greg Newsome from the Cleveland Browns. So take a look here of this Jonathan Jones trade idea from CBS Sports, where they have the Commanders picking up Jonathan Jones, and I actually think it's for a 6th-round pick, not a 4th-round pick here, Joey. So I think that Jeremy built the graphics wrong here. So it's a 6th-round pick, not a 4th-round pick for a guy in Jonathan Jones who has been a very solid starter in the National Football League for the Patriots. He's on an expiring deal with New England. And there we go. Joey's got the graphic fix for us here, guys. So let's take a look here at what Cody Benjamin from CBS Sports had to say about this particular trade idea. It definitely intrigues me quite a bit here because I actually like Jonathan Jones as a player, and I think he'd fit well with what the Commanders want to do here in Washington. This is what he had to say. While Jones is easily the Patriots' most accomplished cornerback, new coach Gerard Mayo acknowledged recently that New England is just beginning a multi-year rebuild. At 31 years of age, approaching 2025 free agency, Jones therefore makes for a logical trade chip. While he's been more solid than spectacular for years, his experience could be invaluable to Washington, which has a potential playoff contender, thanks to rookie Jayden Daniels, but has struggled mightily on the back end of Dan Quinn's defense. And listen, man, I really like Jonathan Jones as a player, and I like the price tag of a 6th-round pick to go get him. Now, as Cody said in his article, Jonathan Jones isn't a true number 1 guy. I would classify him more as a number 2 kind of guy. But if the Commanders really feel good about where they're at with Mike Sainristil and Benjamin St-Juste, maybe you don't need a true, legitimate, lockdown number 1 corner to make this secondary at least serviceable for the rest of the season, especially if you don't want to end up paying like a 2nd or a 3rd-round draft pick to get a cornerback help this season. I think that Jones makes sense for the Patriots to unload, and I think it makes sense for the Commanders to potentially grab him in a trade. So keep your eye on Jonathan Jones here. But somebody that I actually think is younger and has a little bit more upside and could be a potential number 1 corner here in Washington if they ended up trading for him is Browns corner Greg Newsome. Now Newsome was a very high draft pick just a couple of seasons back. He's in his 4th year of the NFL. Of his NFL career now. He's 24 years old. He's not necessarily like the biggest guy in the world. He was known more as like a zone corner out of college, but he has played in a very man-heavy scheme there in Cleveland, and he has really thrived these past several seasons. He is under contract for this year and next. Next year is when his 5th-year option kicks in, so it's about a little bit over $13 million against the cap if the Commanders end up trading for him. And right now, the Browns look like they might be having a fire sale at the trade deadline after a 1-5 start to their 2024 NFL campaign. Now, the kicker when it comes to Greg Newsome is that he's going to be more expensive than a guy like Jonathan Jones, right? He's going to be probably more along the lines of like a J.C. Horn, who we've talked about on the show before, kind of a younger corner who still has a very bright future in this league. Those kind of younger guys, high upside guys, they're going to cost more on the open market. It's probably going to cost more like a 2nd or probably a 3rd-round pick for a guy like Greg Newsome if you want to get him on the open trade market. So pick a cornerback here. We've talked about these corners on the show recently. Which one would you like to see the Commanders pick up? Type JJ for Jonathan Jones, type GN for Greg Newsome, ML for Marshawn Lattimore, or JH for JC Horn. That'll be it for today's edition of Commanders News and Rumors. Appreciate all of your guys' support. Thank you guys for making it to the end of today's video. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button because we got in-depth free Commanders coverage right here on the channel just about every single day. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button right now to never miss a big story.